Hello, Bay West. I hope you're having a wonderful day so far. As you can see, we're not in our normal surroundings for the start of our worship service. Don't worry, nobody's thrown a stay-at-home order on you and you were the last to find out. Not at all. But I did receive some tough news this week. A dear relative of mine that I grew up with passed away suddenly at the end of the week, and the funeral is this weekend. So I won't be here in person, our in-person service on Sunday, and with the time frame I was not able to record the sermon for you this week. We have a wonderful guy filling in, at the last minute on Sunday. They're going to be super blessed. If you want to go by there and hear a second message, it's awesome as well. It's a good time to go do it. But today we're going to do something that my wife calls Say It Again Sunday, which is basically, I'm going to go back and pull one of the most listened to sermons of the past year. With a lot of views. I felt like it was valuable for folks, prayed about it, and we're going to be talking about a really great subject that I think is extremely important right now in our culture and where we are. It's amazing. I listened back through it and thought, man, this is really kind of timely for where we are right now, politically, for where we are as people, and citizens of our country. So we're going to be talking about an important life skill this morning. So when I come back in a few minutes, I will actually have on a different shirt. And no, it didn't change really fast. But I'd like to welcome you to be a part of Bay West this morning. Of course, my name is Jim Campbell. I'm the lead pastor here. And thank you so much for joining us. As always, God made this appointment for you. Don't pass it up. Don't take it for granted. God has something in the songs that are upcoming or in the words that are about to be said that has a dynamic message for you about your specific life, where you are right now. So listen up for Him. If you're not a part of a life group, we'd love for you to be a part of one. Those life groups are small group Bible studies that meet throughout the city here in Palm Bay and West Melbourne and Melbourne. And truthfully, truth be known, they meet all over the place. We've had people sign up for our life groups from other states because our life group, all of our life groups except maybe one is hybrid now. They, which means we have online people meeting and people in the room, and we're just doing that to keep allow people a chance to connect, to be as safe as possible. So you can find one of those groups to be a part of. Doesn't matter where you're listening from. If you're in, Saskatchewan, Canada, or whatever, you can just sign up online and be a part of that. You can go to baywestchurch.com/groups and find out the group listings that we have, and you just click join that group, and there you go, and it'll show you all the information you need, and a life group leader will contact you. So that's a great way for you to be involved in a group, even if you feel like staying at home or if you're in a place that you're not really connected. Obviously, we are meeting in person as well at 11:15 on Sundays, and we do have our KIDZONE. We are socially distanced, and masks are encouraged, but they are not mandated, and we have grace for all, because there's varying levels of sensitivity with the virus. If you would like to follow on with the sermon notes, I'm not really going to have that. I'll have that component for here, and I will put that link up, but it will not be our normal baywestchurch.com/notes that we normally do. I'll have that up in the description of where you can go for the notes for this particular sermon, because we'll do the regular one for the in-person service. So anyway, that's what's going on today. If you'd like to give your tithes and offerings, as always, baywestchurch.com/give, or you can mail it to Bay West Church, 100 Emerson Drive, Northwest, Palm Bay, Florida, 32907. If you're not a part of our KIDZONE, please join our Bay West KIDZONE Facebook group. Our children's leader, Maggie, puts up content every week. We have prayer time on Wednesdays for the kids on Facebook live from that group. So it's a great place for the parents to join, and we want to help you disciple your kids. If you don't feel comfortable bringing your kids in, we'll have video content and a discussion guide for you that you don't have to be a seminary graduate at all to sit there, because we want to help you disciple your kids where you are. But right now, I want to turn the service over to Josue Gomez and our worship team to lead us in worship.
are good, you are good when there's nothing good in me. You are love on display for all to see. You are light when the darkness closes in. You are hope, you have covered all my sins. You are peace when my fear is crippling. You are true, even in my wandering. You are joy, you're the reason that I sing. You are life, in you death is exhausted sin. And oh, I'm running to your arms, I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the world, forever reign. You are more than my words will ever say. You are Lord, all creation will proclaim. You are here, in your presence I'm made whole. You are God, of all else I'm letting go. And oh, I'm running to your arms, I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the world, forever reign. I'm running to your arms, I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the world, forever reign. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus, Jesus. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus, Jesus. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus, Jesus. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus, and oh, I'm running to your arms, I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the world, forever reigns. I'm running to your arms, I'm running to your arms. The riches of your love will always be enough. Nothing compares to your embrace. Light of the world, forever reigns. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus, Jesus. My heart will sing no other name. Jesus, Jesus. Jesus, my heart will sing. No other name. Jesus, Jesus, my heart will sing. No other name. Jesus, Jesus.
Forgiveness. God talks about it all through the Bible. We see examples all over the place of God forgiving people, other people not forgiving each other, and the chaos that ensues when that happens. God talks about it in verses about how we are to forgive and why we are to forgive. It's a huge deal, and it's one of the most critical life skills that we can have. I call it a life skill because it's not just something like cooking or learning to drive or how to write a check, those kind of life skills. But this is a skill that truly doesn't just allow us to survive. It allows us to thrive because it gives life through Christ. And God, the source of all life, has told us this is important and paramount for us. Now, I want to read a verse of Scripture in Luke chapter 23, and we're going to talk a little bit about forgiveness. We're going to talk about a few things forgiveness is not, and a few facts about forgiveness that we can learn from a time that Jesus forgave greatly here on earth. It happens in Luke chapter 23. It's the scene is where Jesus is on the cross, and he's being crucified and dying, truthfully, not because he did anything wrong on earth, but because he's dying for our sin. And so he's on the cross. There's nails through his hands and his feet, and he's on the cross. And in Luke chapter 23, verse 34, Jesus said, "Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing." I want to tell you a few things about forgiveness. Before we jump into that verse, here's a few things that forgiveness is not. Forgiveness is not agreeing with behavior or agreeing with sin. Sometimes people feel like that if I forgive someone who did something wrong to me, then that means that I agree that what they did was okay. That's not true. The fact that forgiveness needs to be given, you have to acknowledge that the behavior was wrong. So you're not giving in and saying, oh, the wrong is now right. God doesn't make the wrong right when he forgives. He accentuates the right thing even more because he's showing us that to deal with sin, there must be forgiveness. The other thing is that forgiveness is not based on man's standard, but it's based on God's standard. A lot of times we base forgiveness on how we feel at the moment. Our forgiveness can't be based on what we feel. It must be based on what God says. Many times in an interaction with someone, someone does something, and it is sin. It's something that God said not to do. So pretend someone lied about you and said something horrible about you and was malicious about it. Well, we know in our heart we don't like that. That makes us feel bad because they lied about us. That's not true. That's not fair. You lied. God doesn't like lies. God says not to lie. You were rude to me. You're not edifying to me. You weren't trying to help me. All these things that God talks about in His Word. Maybe they said something about your looks or how you are or something like that. That's not. There's nothing wrong with it. They're just making fun of you and demeaning you in a certain way. And they're talking about the image of God because we're all created in the image of God. There's reasons that those are kind of baked into our DNA that are wrong, but there's also sometimes that someone does something or says something to us, and it's not wrong. It just makes us feel bad. Let's say a boss has to correct us about something, and the correction is hard. Maybe we really tried really hard. Maybe we were emotionally invested in the project, but we just did it wrong. And it makes us feel bad on the inside, but our feelings don't dictate sin. What God says dictates sin. Our forgiveness is tied to actions. It's not necessarily tied to our feelings. Another thing that forgiveness is not permission to do it again. That's a common misconception. If I forgive you, then you'll just do it again. I forgive you again, do it again. You just think it's okay. That's not true at all. Romans 6:15 says, "What then shall we sin because we're not under the law but under grace?" In other words, God's going to extend grace. Should we just sin and go and do what we want to? Woo! You're licensed to sin, No, and God says, by no means, Paul wrote. By no means. No way, man. That's not what we're trying to do.
That's not what it is at all. When God forgives, he doesn't make the wrong thing right. Not at all. He's not saying, hey, do it again. He's choosing not to hold that occurrence against us moving forward. And that is demonstrating forgiveness. It's also, forgiveness is not the release from seeking justice. Sometimes we feel like, I forgive them, there's no recompense there. There's no justice. There's never justice. There's a poignant picture that's relevant of what forgiveness and justice. I feel like there was a time when a young man was shot in Dallas, and apparently by an off-duty cop. The off-duty cop's story was that she went home after a long shift and mistakenly went in the wrong apartment. A man came out of the room. She thought it was an intruder, and she shot him. That's the story. I don't know what it is, but either way, she was being tried in court for this. And after the conviction, the young man, who was the man's name that died was Botham Jean, and his brother stood up to address the lady in court, and he said to his family, he said, Botham was a Christian. He didn't say, I didn't tell my family I was going to say this, but Botham loved Jesus. And I believe he believed in forgiveness, and so I forgive you. And he forgave the woman there. And I think that's a beautiful picture of both justice, seeking justice, while forgiving. At the same time, Isaiah 30:18 tells us that God, the Lord, is a God of justice. So God is, by nature, who he is, just. But at the same time, he is able to forgive. God doesn't lay down justice to forgive us. God settles justice through forgiving us. He sets a system where he does. In 1 John 1:9, it says he is both faithful and just to forgive us our sins. In other words, he's faithful to forgive and just in the way that he goes about doing it. We can trust him in that. And so what that means is we don't have to give up seeking of justice to forgive. But there are some things that are truths about forgiveness that we learn from this verse, from the things that Jesus said. From the scenario that it's happening in, the first thing we learn is that forgiveness always has a cost. When someone wrongs you or someone wrongs me, they can come and they can grovel and they can try to make up for it. They can, if they broke my bicycle, they can buy me a new one that's even better. And they could try to make restitution for it, but the truth is they can't erase that from history. It happened. You can't. When we sin against God, doesn't go back and, like, I'm going to run back in a time machine and pretend and now that you apologize to it, I'm going to go take that away and make you sure you didn't do it. It's not that you can't remember it. He didn't erase it from your memory. And I know we talk about he cast it into the sea of forgetfulness as far as the east is from the west. What God talks about in those illustrations of how he deals with sin that we've asked for forgiveness for when he forgives us. But the truth is God didn't forget that those things happened. God chose not to hold them against us moving forward. So that's what forgiveness, it's a cost. It always has a cost. And the cost is always paid by the person who forgives. And we see Jesus illustrating this right here. On the cross, Father, forgive them, for they don't know what they're doing. He was paying the cost, as all people who forgive do, but in much greater amounts. The other thing is forgiveness is given to all. I love this statement, forgive them. One thing that I think that's missing is he didn't go, forgive the Jews, but not the Romans. Well, forgive everybody except Pilate, man, because didn't like him, All right, okay, no, well, let's flip the other way. I forgive the Romans, don't forgive the Jews, because they had their chance to get on the Jesus train, they didn't get on it. Don't do it. No, he didn't say any of that. He said, forgive them. You know who them is? Everybody but him. Forgive them. Because they don't know what they're doing. See, Jesus understood something extremely important about sin, that we don't get it. We don't get it. And he said, look, I'm not going to restrict it based on who you are. I'm not going to base it on who you are. Everyone Forgiveness is open to everyone, every color, of every ideology. I don't care if they're across the political aisle from you. I don't care if someone has a different set of ethics that grinds your gears. Forgiveness should be open to everyone. And so it's an open thing. It's open, doesn't matter who you are, but also it doesn't matter what you've done. He didn't say, look, forgive all the people who just yelled at me, but not these soldiers who are down here just gambling for my clothes right in front of me. Dude, that's just wrong. No, I can't do that. He said, forgive them. Doesn't matter who they are. Doesn't matter what they've done. Forgive them all. The ones that have beaten me, the one that stuck in the side, the one that made fun of me, the one that said ugly things about me, the ones that turned their back on me, the ones that cheered me one minute and then wanted to call for my death the next. I mean, come on. Forgive them all. Forgiveness always has a cost, but forgiveness is always open to everyone. You can't disqualify that. The truth is that when we know in 1 John 1:9 that we talked about earlier, said God is faithful and just to forgive. He's going to forgive. He didn't say, look, I'm going to just forgive those people or these people or that people. No, he says, I am faithful and just to forgive. In 1 John 1:9. And not only that, Jesus kind of kicked it up a notch in Matthew 6 where he talked about this. He said, look, in verse 14, he says, if you forgive those who sin against you, your heavenly Father will forgive you. Yay, all right. I forgive those who sin against me. But then verse 15 comes around and blows everybody up. It says, but if you refuse to forgive others, your Father will not forgive your sins. Now, he didn't say there, if you refuse to give others the really bad stuff, or the stuff that just really gets to you, the stuff that really grinds your gears, the stuff that, you have that pet thing that drives you nuts, or that really horrible, horrible thing that should never have been done, ever. He doesn't say those things are exempt. He said, forgive them all. And you said, Jim, but you don't understand, man. You don't get it. You don't get it. You don't get it. You don't know how bad it is. You don't know how bad that thing is that they did to me. You don't know how I felt. You don't know what it made me feel. You don't know how long or what happened to me. You don't know where the spiral it sent me on. And you know what? You are 100% right. I don't. I know my stuff that you don't know, but I can't fathom your stuff. And the truth is, I have said before, if you came up here and you spelled it out for me and you said, Jim, this happened, and this happened, and this happened, and this happened, probably in 5 minutes I'd be so mad I'd be going to want to beat them up myself. Because I'm me. But the truth is that Jesus said the best way, the God-honoring way, is to forgive anyone of anything. And we have to trust him in that. That's forgiveness. Father, I'm paying the cost because there's a cost. Father, forgive them, anyone of anything. And the third thing that we understand about forgiveness from this short phrase that's so powerful is that forgiveness is not about us. For he said, look, for they don't know what they're doing. As much as the disciples had invested in following Jesus and would invest in the years to come on earth, they could not fathom who they were following. As much respect, as much devotion, they could not fathom how much was needed, how much was deserved. The people that were around, that were jeering and that were yelling at Jesus, hurling insults his way, could not fathom, what are you doing? They couldn't understand how wrong those actions were. If I walk up to a foreign dignitary at a very prestigious event, and on camera in front of everybody, I walk up and I slap them across the face, I am going down like crazy, man. They're taking me down. When all their security is going to take me down, and you might not see me again, if I were to do that. Because there's such power, there is such value placed and respect placed on the position. The truth is, if somebody walked up to me in a Walmart parking lot and just ran by me and went bap and popped me in the face and took off running, they might just get away with it. Because I got nobody really cares too much about little old Jim, You're going to sit there and pop me in the face. Okay, well, all right. If I don't handle it, I got to go call the police, and maybe they'll find you, or not. I don't know. You might get away with it. See, there's a difference. It's not fair, it's not right, but there's a difference we recognize a difference in the respect level of the role and position. But what we don't understand is why this is where I am, and this is where the dignitary leader is, or whatever you want to be. God is billions of times higher. And to simply go against him is the worst thing ever. Forgiveness. Sin. It's not about us. And you may still say, but Jim, you don't understand, man. You just don't understand what they've done. There's a story in the New Testament where Jesus tells a story to make a point to Peter about forgiveness. And the story goes like this. He said, there was a king who was cleaning up his records. And in his records he found, that there was a man that owed him a great debt. Like in our time, our economy, it would be millions of dollars, to give you some context. So this man owed millions and millions of dollars to him. And so he called his servant in and said, hey, you owe me millions of dollars. Can you pay it? Can't do it. I don't have that kind of money. Okay, well then sell everything that guy has, which is only a drop in the bucket because he doesn't have enough, and then put him in the jail until I can work that debt off of him. And the guy goes, please, no, don't do that. My wife, my family, please, don't do that. Please forgive me of that debt. And the king is moved, and he forgives the man of the debt. Scot-free, walk away, you're good. The man then leaves the king's presence, and he goes out into the community, and he finds a fellow servant, similar to him, who owes him a smaller amount, much smaller, let's say $1,000. And he says, hey man, pay me this debt. You owe me this debt right now. I need this $1,000 right now. And the guy goes, look, I can't pay it. Same story, same thing. I can't pay it. I don't have it. I'll pay it as soon as I can, but I can't. I don't have it right now. And the guy calls the police and says, forget it, man. You're going to jail. And he sends him to jail until he can pay the debt. Well, the king hears about that. He says, look, man, and he hauls the dude back in. He said, look, man, I forgave you millions and millions of dollars just because you asked me to. You asked for it, and I did. And this dude owes you $1,000, and you treat him like that? You ungrateful servant. Sell everything that he owns and send him to jail until he can pay off the debt. See, a lot of times we act like in our lives that we're the king and there's millions and millions of debt against us. But the truth is we're not. We're the servant. We owe millions and millions of debt to God in sin. We owe him a great debt, and he's forgiven it of us. And when we go to each other, we're the people that go to the servants around us that owe this minuscule debt compared to the great debt that God forgave us. And our gratitude is so small that we can't even forgive people around us for, in comparison, a much smaller debt. So often it's like we feel like we're on the cross and we're being mistreated and they are doing us wrong. But the truth is, Jesus is on the cross and we're actually in the crowd. And when we choose not to forgive, or when we withhold forgiveness from someone, we are the people that don't understand what we're doing. We are the ones who are fooled by sin into believing that the way we are acting in this way is right. Just like the person who was wrong to us. They're fooled by sin into believing that that's a proper way to act, to live and thrive. Or even if they know it's wrong, to say, oh, well, I have to be wrong to somehow be right. That's crazy, but that's what sin does to you. It messes up your priorities. It messes up how you look at things. And when we choose not to forgive, we step into the same boat as them. We're not on the cross, we're in the crowd. We have to perfect and hone in on the skill of forgiveness. there's really two things that we need in this world desperately, critically. We need to be forgiven, and we need to forgive. We need to forgive others, because so often we feel like when we withhold forgiveness, we're keeping them in jail and making them pay. We're like that servant, I'm going to throw you in jail for you can't pay that debt. But the truth is, what really happened was the man who wouldn't forgive was the one who ended up in jail. And when we choose not to forgive, that's where we're putting ourselves, because we're always tied to the hurt of that event. When we forgive, we think we're opening the door and letting them out, but when we open the door to the prison, we realize that we were the ones that were inside all the time. And we're just setting ourselves free, finally. Christian, if you're out there, Christ follower, maybe you have been hurt and you need to forgive, and it's hard. But you have to understand these truths. It's not saying that it was right. It's not a license to do it again. It's never that you have to give up the seeking of justice. But forgiveness always comes at a cost. It's always paid by the person who gave it. Forgiveness is open to everyone for anything. And forgiveness, it's not about us. We've been forgiven millions. Can we not forgive the $5 next to us? And God says, look, how you forgive is how I will forgive you. So why don't we make the hard choice to forgive and let ourselves out of the prison for a change? Now maybe you're out there and you're not a follower of Christ and you wonder, hey, I don't really know about all that. I've been hurt before and I need to know how to forgive, and that's just really hard. Well, one of the things that is truthful is that when we, as Christ followers, try to forgive, we're not forgiving on our own power. The Holy Spirit, Jesus, works with us to help us forgive. And until you follow him, you're not going to have access to that. You'll be trying to do it on your own steam. I don't know if that's totally possible. But when we accept Christ, when we realize where we are, when we realize that we do have a great debt to God, we have sinned, we've all done something. I've never met anybody who said, well, I've done everything perfect right my whole life. No, if you don't believe it, talk to their mama. She'll let you know. There's something that was not done right. We've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. The Bible tells us that. And we accept that on a global scale, unless we're being argumentative. That we've done things that are wrong. There's sin between us and God. And the truth, what we have to understand is that God is so great that one sin against him dooms us for eternity. That's how great he is. That's the value of his position. Yet God was not willing to leave it that way. So he sent Jesus to earth, and Jesus lived a sinless life on earth. Yet he took the death and punishment for us. And because he was fully God, he took the punishment, and his sacrifice was so great, we can commit our lives back to him and receive the righteousness and be reconnected to God and be able to honor him as best we can, because that's who he is and that's what he deserves. And as a side byproduct of doing what's right and honoring the Lord, we get the privilege to walk with him and have access to his knowledge, to wisdom and guidance, and understand this and the power that comes to do the things that we need to do to succeed in life, like with this life skill of forgiveness.
Forgiveness. I hope you've taken the message of forgiveness to heart this morning. So often we feel that when someone wrongs us, that if we don't forgive them, we are exacting revenge or justice on them or making things right in the world. But the truth is, the only people that we're really punishing is ourselves, because we're tying ourselves to that hurt forever. So I encourage you to forgive. Let it go. Apply that message to your friends, to your coworkers, to your family, to your spouse, to those with different political views than you, those with different ideological views than you, even those with different religious views than you. And remember that it's how we love that tells other people whose we are. I'd like to thank you again for being a part of Bay West Church. If you made a decision to follow Christ today, please click on the connection card link that's on the screen. You can go to baywestchurch.com/connect, or in the interface, depending on what you're watching around, there may be a link that says connect. Click on that. Let us know the decision you made, whether it was to follow Christ or whether you just need some prayer or something like that. We are more than willing to be there for you. We have a prayer team that prays throughout the week, and we will put your name in there and be praying for you in whatever struggle you have going on. If you remember, if you're not a part of a life group, please feel free to join a life group. Just go to baywestchurch.com/groups, and you can click find a group, and you'll see the offering of groups that we have. Most all of them are hybrid, some in person, some online. So we have those available. Almost all of our groups are available for anyone who has any kind of sensitivity, whether they are fine coming and being with people, or if they would rather do it online as well. Also join our KIDZONE Facebook group. There's content up every week. You don't want to miss it. If you're not able to bring your kids, you don't feel safe bringing your kids in, maybe your kids are doing e-learning at home, that's a great way we want to help you disciple your kids with that video, which they will love to watch, and you might actually find funny as well. I've watched a few. And a discussion guide that will be great to help you talk through those biblical values with your child. Also, if you'd like to give your tithes and offerings, as always, baywestchurch.com/give, or you can mail it into us at Bay West Church, 100 Emerson Drive Northwest, Palm Bay, Florida, 32907. And again, I hope to see you guys next week. We got a great special thing coming next week. You don't want to miss it. We're going to be talking with a local organization that really helps people that we are partnering with, especially during this time of the pandemic. So you're not going to want to miss the special interview and time that we have next week. So see you back next week, either in person or online. We'll be both places. Have a great week.